Tom Pace from the Talk of the Town, and today, again, we're in the Caddo Parish Registrar of Voters office here at 525 Marshall Street, downtown Shreveport, Louisiana, with another election update. Yes, it is 2012. It is going to be a big presidential election this year, and we're going to talk with the Caddo Registrar of Voters, Ernie Robertson, about what's on the ballot coming up for the next election. I had somebody ask me the other day, Mr. Ernie, when is the next vote? What are we voting on? And
we can't go too long without an election, you know. We got to have an election.
Well, that's right. And what is the one? I hear March 24. Give us.
March 24th is going to be the presidential preference primary. Plus, we'll have an election in the town of Greenwood. And, Tom, it's a little bit confusing for folks in Greenwood. And the rest of the parish, it's a closed primary. We're back to running a closed primary.
I know people hear this all the time. Closed primary. Exactly what does that mean?
Well, in a closed primary, the Republicans can only vote on the Republican presidential candidates, and the Democrats will only vote on the Democratic presidential candidates. And if you're a none or an other party, Green, Libertarian, Reform Party, you won't get to vote in that election because this is a party election by choice of the parties. They restrict who votes in their primaries, and so Republicans will vote in the Republican primary, Democrats in the Democratic primary. But if you live out in Greenwood, it's a little bit different. We're going to talk about that.
So we're talking about March 24th coming up, and what day of the week is it?
That's a Saturday, and the first thing we need to talk about is going to be the fact that Republicans are going to be voting just on the Republican candidates, but we've had some of them drop out just to make things a little bit more confusing. You know, we can't just make it easy. And the problem with that is the ballots have already been printed in Louisiana, and due to some other legal reasons, we're still going to see names on there that have dropped out. So basically, by the time they get down to us, there may be a few more names that are still on our ballot that may not be contenders.
And again, we're talking about the Republican presidential preference primary, where all of those candidates started off in a great big pack, and now they're narrowing down to maybe 3 or 4 key candidates. So in that respect, you're talking about a large number of candidates for the Republican presidential preference primary. And what about the Democrats?
Well, the Democrats, we do have some candidates beside the one everybody would know about, the president. So they'll be on the ballot too. And the Democratic voters will be able to vote on their part of the presidential preference primary. And so we've got that going on. So we'll have a closed primary whenever it comes to the presidential preference primary. That will be closed. But whenever it comes to the town of Greenwood election, they have an open primary.
But obviously, this has to do with another position that is being voted on.
Right. It's the alderman at large position in Greenwood. And so you're going to see candidates. There are 2 candidates for that in Greenwood. So everyone, regardless of party, in Greenwood, if you're registered to vote in Greenwood, you'll be eligible to vote on the alderman at large position. However, whenever you get down to voting for Republican or presidential preference primary candidates, then you'll be locked out, and only the Republicans will vote on the Republicans, and only the Democrats will vote on the Democrats. And the good news is that's the only place that you're going to see that in the parish. Everybody else will be running a closed primary, and you'll be pretty straightforward.
So if you've wondered how it works, that's really how it works. And again, these ballots have been printed up for quite a while for the state of Louisiana in this presidential preference primary that's coming up. All this information is available on Ernie's website for the Caddo Registrar of Voters. Go to www.caddovoter.org. CADDOVOTER.org. The website's up 24/7. It gives you all the information on pertinent facts that you need to know about voting Saturday, March 24th in the presidential preference primary for the Republicans and the Democrats. And people are going to ask this question, though, before we get further. What happens if you should accidentally vote for somebody that has dropped out?
Well, that's a good question. This particular case, normally when somebody drops out, we've already been informed of it, and the votes will be null and void. In this particular case, I assume since we haven't received any paperwork, the votes will be live. In other words, they would count, but the candidate obviously is not going to be in the race for other reasons, and I don't know how they're going to allocate all that, to be quite honest with you. But I do know that February 22nd is the last day you can make a change to your voter record, to change your party, change your name, change your address, or register to vote, and you can do it all online at caddovoter.org.
And that was going to be what I'm following. You're right there. 24/7, they can go to caddovoter.org and actually register to vote. Now, what's the drop dead date?
February 22nd, Wednesday, February 22nd is the last day that you can register and make changes to your record for the March 24th election. So if you're looking down there, and you can look up, of course, and see, well, I'm not in the right party, I want to get into this other party, well, then you can make that change online. Or if you look up and you say, you know what, I've moved, I need to change my address in Caddo, you can go ahead and do that too.
And that's important?
It's very important. You got to. One of the most important things in a presidential year is to make sure that you're registered at the address where your driver's license is, and that may remind you to change your driver's license too. But you do need to have your driver's license address matching your voting address, and that's something I always suggest to people. And so, be a good time to go ahead and do that.
We are seeing a good number of Caddo Parish residents who have already registered. I think we're up to nearly 90%. Is that right?
We're still hanging down around 86, 87, but that's pretty good compared to the rest of the state. It's a little bit under that. But the good news is that we're back up over 163,000 voters, and so probably by the presidential election, we'll be well above 164,000, which is where we were for 2008.
Now, what about those people that vote early, or they want to vote early? They don't have to, and the deal is you don't have to anymore get a note or say the reason why. You can just go ahead and vote early. That's one of the things the Secretary of State has been very forward about.
Right. That's going to start March the 10th and run through March the 17th, except on that intervening Sunday on March the 11th. And we'll be here from 8:30 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. So it's March the 10th through March the 17th, 8:30 a.m. till 6 p.m. each day. You can come early, vote, and you can get it over and done. And a lot of people, of course, it's going to be springtime by then, so a lot of people are going to have a lot of other things they want to do. And I always encourage people, if you can, come early, vote.
And we have seen in prior elections where early voters have made a difference.
Well, the early voters, tend to be pretty stout as far as the numbers we started having for Caddo. And we have a lot of mail-outs, too, that we do. So you're going to see a good number of people that go to early vote.
So if you look at this, he's talked about the Republicans, the Democrats, and those for the presidential preference primary that are no party or none, as he refers to it, and all other parties like Libertarians and Greens. You don't really, those people don't have an opportunity to vote in this because it's closed?
Right. It's a closed party primary, and in this particular case, it's up to the parties as to whether people that are in other parties or no party can be invited to vote in their primary. In this particular case, the Republicans and the Democrats both decided it was going to be a closed primary, so that's what we've got.
Well, it's called What's on the Ballot. It's the Caddo Parish Registrar of Voters, Ernie Robertson, here with me, and it is another election update in this presidential preference primary, and March 24th is the date. You should go ahead and make sure that you vote because every vote counts, and log on www.caddovoter.org for all the information. For Ernie Robertson, I'm Tom Pace from the Talk of the Town.